For anyone that is an artist and is in an attempt to achieve their own art style has probably been told at one point or another that they most likely have to look at another artist's art style in order to create their own. Personally speaking, that's sort of how I achieve my own art style, and if you want to know all my artistic inspirations that made my style what it is today, you could let me know in the comments. I may do a video on it at one point or another. Anyway, I've looked at many artists at this point, and yeah, mainly manga artists, I know, and I do hope to expand on to do more comic book artists later, but as I look up different people and do some research, I noticed that some art styles look very similar to each other, and sure, anime in general sort of all looks the same, but walk with me on this one. The types of art styles I'm talking about are the more distinctive ones, you know, the ones that you immediately know who the artist is when you look at a piece of their work. To start off, let's look at Akira Toriyama. His art style is honestly one of the more iconic styles out there. You look at Blue Dragon, Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, and of course, Dragon Ball, you immediately know he's the artist behind these works. Of course, as he continued to do work, his style did change from what it once was. It started off as flat colors with some effects similar to cel shading, to something with a more softer method of rendering, sort of like an airbrush. And like most other influential artists, many other people took after his art style. One such case is Toyotaro. If you've been around the Dragon Ball fanbase on I guess the mid-2000s, you may have heard of something called Dragon Ball AF. Personally, I've always caught a bit of news about it, say like Super Saiyan 5 or something similar to that. Basically, one can say it was fan fiction. But what sold it to many people, I guess, was the art style. It was very similar, dare I say damn near exact to Toriyama's. Technically, he grasped onto what made Toriyama's style his style and sort of made it his own. It's honestly jarring how similar their art styles are. Hell, he's even called the successor to Akira Toriyama, so I guess that means something. However, there's another case in which I absolutely could not tell which artist is which, and that's between Hiro Mashima and Ueda Atsuo. To this day, I pat myself on the back for reading the entirety of Fairy Tail, and I still have the scars left on my psyche. That being said, when Idun Zero started publishing in June 2018, I made the executive decision that I would not read it. But what blew my mind is that a month later, Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest started publication. I honestly couldn't believe it. I read the first chapter and the art was one-to-one like Mashima's, and at first I thought he was just an absolute beast, you know, working on two manga at the same time. One would be weekly and the other would be bi-weekly. I still think it's bananas, but I guess it's doable? And after doing some research, it turns out that he's doing Eden Zero while Ueda Atsuo will be doing 100 Years Quest. And when I compare these two artists, it's even closer in comparison than say Toriyama and Toyotaro. Like, it is an almost exact copy, to me at least. I say almost because there's no real way someone could copy an art style one-to-one. In my humble opinion at least, I think that's literally impossible. One way or another, your own proclivities will peak out ever so slightly. And I say that, but I'm still baffled on how similar these two artists are. Another good example of identical art styles is Shigenori Sojima and Sogabe Shujin. For those that don't know, Sojima is the man responsible for the art of Personas 3, 4, 5, Catherine, etc. And Shujin has done the art for the Persona 3 and 4 manga. He's also done other things, but for the sake of the comparison, we'll only look at the Persona stuff. Now, it's not as identical as the previous two pairs I mentioned, but the nuances that Shujin has incorporated from Sojima's style helps in selling Persona 3 and 4 manga. Also, quick disclaimer, please let it be known that I'm not 100% sure if that was the intent. It could literally totally be the case in which Shujin is not even actively trying to have his style look like Sojima's. I'm saying this now because I can't really go into their minds to figure out their intent. I'm only mentioning this because these two artists share very similar nuances that fit into the general overall Persona art style. And to be even super clear, I mean Sojima's art style, because no one's copying the Persona 1 and 2 art style. Not that I've seen at least. Things like the eyes and the flat rendering style really make a bridge of some sorts between the game and the manga. Also, this is a bit of an aside, but I might make a video talking about the art styles between the anime and manga, or rather the source material, because I want to talk about the continuity between mediums, and I think it would be something interesting to talk about. But going back to Sojima and Shujin, I mentioned more or less a lot of the things that makes these styles very particular in my analysis of Sojima, and my video talking about the Persona art style, so go ahead and watch those if you want. Okay, let's go back to shonen nonsense again. I think we've all heard of Naruto before, right? Masashi Kishimoto has a style that I won't say is completely noticeable from a glance, but I won't say it's as distinguishable as say someone like Araki. But I do remember there was a time where there was a rumor in which someone was copying his style. Now, has anyone heard of 666 Satan or O Parts Hunter, depending on where you are? Yeah, we're really going back in time now. People would say that the person doing 666 Satan was copying Kishimoto's art style. Again, I don't think copying an art style one-to-one is even possible, unless you're an AI, I guess. But the kicker to this rumor was, and for those who already know are probably already laughing now, but the kicker is that the artist for 666 Satan and the artist for Naruto are brothers. Like, no duh, they'd have similar art styles. Even Kishimoto, well, they're actually both Kishimoto. Even Masashi Kishimoto said that due to both being into art at a young age and being influenced by more or less the same things, of course they'd have similar art styles. Again, I don't think you could perfectly copy an art style, but I would say let this one slide, please. But to be fair, this is old news, and I mean very old news. I guess a more interesting comparison would be between Masashi Kishimoto and Mikio Ikemoto, since he is technically continuing the Naruto story with Boruto. And on top of that, he was Kishimoto's assistant, and I would say that would be a case in which one would naturally be influenced by someone else's art style. However, his art style in the beginning of Boruto was pretty jarring, like these characters were looking very off from what we knew them to look like. My theory is that I think Ikemoto wanted to sort of use his own art style, so to speak, to continue Boruto. However, if you look at things like Fairy Tail, 100 Years Quest, and Dragon Ball Super, having the art style be as similar as possible to the original story sort of sells the authenticity, for lack of a better word. Technically, it doesn't have to be the same guy to continue the story, at least for the art, but the new guy better draw a lot like the old guy, okay? Because I do remember a certain amount of backlash due to the art style. But if you look at current Boruto, it's a lot closer to Kishimoto's art style. And thank God for that, because I cannot take Sasuke's early Boruto look seriously. However, there are some things that I do like about Ikemoto's art style in general. I like how he does the Araki thing and gives the characters whatever colors that fit the overall illustration. I love this type of liberty in coloring, since this is a type of series in which the main cast of characters are going to be wearing the same clothing throughout the story. So having some color swaps within the illustrations does make it a bit more interesting. Anyway, these are just a few cases in which two artists have near identical art styles, and I'm sure that there are more cases out there that I don't know about, and if you want, you can leave them in the comments for me to check out. Hell, I may even do a part 2 to this video.